Straight ahead on KCAL9 News at 4, a U.S. Capitol officer killed, another hurt after a driver rammed his car into a barricade. What we're learning about the victims and the man behind the attack. Plus, a heartbroken father talks to KCAL9 about his young son killed when a man went on a rampage at an Orange County office building. Then, the new travel guidelines for people with the COVID vaccine as California gets ready to let you go back indoors for a concert. And we have your Easter weekend weather forecast next at 4.
Live from the Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, this is KCAL9 News at 4.
It is with a very, very heavy heart that I announce one of our officers has succumbed to his injuries.
Now at 4, one Capitol Hill police officer is dead, another injured after a driver mows them down, then comes after them with a knife. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Juan Fernandez.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susie Suh. This is KCAL9 News at 4, and we're streaming on CBSN Los Angeles. That suspect was also killed. Today's violent attack triggered a lockdown at the Capitol.
It was the most serious security threat since the January 6th insurrection that injured dozens and left 5 people dead. KCAL9's Amy Johnson joins us with details on this latest incident. Amy.
Well, Juan and Susie, right now, police say it does not seem to be terrorism related, but it has brought more questions about the suspect's motives at the Capitol, which was already on heightened alert. A procession for fallen Capitol Police Officer William Billy Evans. The 18-year veteran of the force was killed when a car investigators say was driven by 25-year-old Noah Green tried to breach the perimeter of the Capitol, hitting 2 Capitol police officers and ramming into a barrier. You can see his blue car dented and the windshield smashed.
The suspect did exit the vehicle with a knife in hand, and at that time he started to lunge toward run aggressively toward U.S. Capitol Police Office.
Police say the suspect managed to stab an officer before police fatally shot him.
It does not appear that he is known to the Capitol Police or the Metropolitan Police Department at this time. It does not appear to be terrorism related, but obviously we'll continue to investigate.
According to CNN, Green posted recently on social media that he had lost his job and suffered medical ailments, and said he believed the federal government was targeting him with mind control. The attack unfolded while Congress was on recess. President Biden had left for Camp David, and the White House press secretary was in the middle of a news conference.
I'm obviously not aware, as Kelly acknowledged, of the situation at the Capitol. The President of the United States always travels with a national security rep.
Although Congress is not in session this week, a few lawmakers were working in the Capitol complex, including California Congressman Ro Khanna, who told CNN he had just stepped out of his office when the attack happened.
When I came back, I had frantic calls from someone on my staff saying, get away, there's an incident. And honestly, it did bring back memories of January 6th.
The incident comes just 3 months after a mob of armed insurrectionists stormed the U.S. Capitol as Congress was voting to certify Joe Biden's presidential win. Now, police believe the suspect was working alone and the threat to the Capitol is over. Now, just last week, law enforcement took down fencing around the outermost perimeter of the Capitol complex. I'll send it back to you.
Amy, thank you. Now to the very latest on the mass shooting in Orange. The suspect has now been charged, but his court appearance today was pushed because he is still recovering in the hospital.
And we're now getting a more clear picture of all the victims. KCAL9 Orange County reporter Michelle Geely spoke with the father of the 9-year-old victim, who is obviously devastated. He lost his only child.
There's no words to describe the type of angel I had.
As a tribute to his 9-year-old son, Matthew, Rafael Farias has posted a video on social media of his only child, a boy described to be beyond his years, but with the playfulness of a young boy.
He's very also like giving, they deserve more, Daddy. Yeah, you don't need to buy me anything, whatever you could afford, buy it. As long as you give me love. It's pretty difficult at the moment because I never, in my wildest dream, expected for him to go first.
Matthew Farias was the youngest of 4 people killed Wednesday at an office building in Orange. Authorities say he died in his mother's arms during a shooting rampage at her workplace, Unified Homes. Family members say Blanca Tamayo was critically injured. Her adult daughter, Genevieve Rigoza, died. Ragoza's father, the company's co-owner, Luis Tovar, was killed, as was an employee, Leticia Solis. The gunman, identified by officials as 44-year-old Aminadab Gaxiola Gonzalez, has been charged with 4 counts of murder and 3 counts of attempted murder for allegedly opening fire on a pair of Orange police officers. This photo was provided by law enforcement, showing the suspect inside of the office building holding a gun. He was wounded by police as they shot at him through the gates at the complex. Authorities say Gonzalez locked the gates, making it difficult for his victims to flee.
Cowardly, person trying to take people's life, innocent, and taking my son's life. There's no name, to call this person, and, my heart's still in pain. I'm praying for the other victims as well. My heart goes to them. Life is not going to be the same. He was my drive, my engine. He was my hero.
Several GoFundMe pages have been posted online to help raise money for the victims. Meanwhile, a judge is monitoring the suspect's medical condition to determine when he's able to enter a plea to the criminal charges. In Santa Ana, Michelle Geely, KCAL9 News.
And now to the battle against the pandemic. The state has announced more big reopenings for later this month. Indoor concerts, theater performances, and other private gatherings can start welcoming guests on April 15th. KCAL9's Rachel Kim shows us the guidelines that must be followed.
With vaccination rates increasing and the state's COVID-19 test positivity rate near a record low, the California Department of Public Health announced changes today that's welcome news to many.
I love it. Let's get back to normal.
I'd like to go to a Dodger game.
The state is now allowing indoor concerts, theater performances, and other private gatherings starting April 15th with restrictions.
They'll have to bring their vaccination card or a result that's that's tested negative within 72 hours before the event starts. And so we anticipate that in the future that these solutions will be digital. So currently it's going to be self-verification.
When it comes to venues with a capacity of up to 1,500 people, in the red tier, capacity is limited to 10% or 100 people. Capacity increases to 25% if all guests are tested or show proof of vaccination. In the orange tier, capacity is limited to 15% or 200 people. It then increases to 35% if all guests are tested or show proof of vaccination. For venues with a capacity of 1,501 and above, in the red tier, testing or proof of vaccination is required and capacity is limited to 20%. In the orange tier, capacity is limited to 10% or 2,000 people. It's increased to 35% if all guests are tested or show proof of full vaccination.
Yeah, I think it's long overdue. I think a lot of people are getting a little stir crazy, so I welcome it.
In addition to capacity limits, these activities are allowed with modifications, including physical distancing, advanced ticket purchases, designated areas for eating and drinking, and attendance limited to in-state visitors.
I'll still take the precautions as needed wherever they're required, but I just want to go back to normal.
Rachel Kim, KCAL9 News.
More coronavirus restrictions will soon be lifted in LA County after meeting the threshold to enter the orange tier this week. But health experts continue to urge caution.
Our numbers have improved dramatically, but we cannot let up. With the beautiful weather, spring holidays, UCLA in the Final Four, and baseball season starting, there are plenty of reasons to get together with friends. Following these safety measures is the only way we can avoid taking a step back on our recovery journey.
The health department also says as of Monday, new businesses can begin to open up, including bars that don't serve food. Other businesses can increase indoor capacity. The county says it will also continue to expand its vaccination efforts and will receive nearly 400,000 doses next week. Well, now that more people are eligible for those vaccinations, there's still a race to inoculate essential workers. A mobile clinic was set up today at East LA City College dedicated to getting them shots. It even took on a festive atmosphere.
So when we talk about a celebration today and why we're here and why it's so extremely important and why we're cheerful is because we're finally getting our communities vaccinated. Our communities were devastated and left behind in every single way.
Well, a mariachi band serenaded the essential workers to help create a fun environment. Today's clinic was held in the college parking lot. Northeast Community Clinics plan to give out 1,500 doses.
With the state's coronavirus positivity rate hovering around 1.8%, Governor Gavin Newsom told people at a vaccine clinic in San Bernardino the war against the pandemic is far from over.
It's not taking Good Friday off. This disease is not taking Easter weekend off. It's certainly not going away for spring break. This disease is as deadly as it's ever been. The only reason California is laying claim to having one of the lowest positivity rates in America is because of the hard work that is being done all across this state to practice the physical distancing, to wear the face coverings, and yes, to get vaccinated.
He says 18 million doses have been distributed so far across the state, and close to 4 million of those are in the hardest hit areas. Once that 4 million in equity distribution is hit, even more reopenings could occur. The governor also said close to 2.5 million doses will arrive next week, the most in a single week. And earlier today, he visited a clinic in San Diego. This afternoon, he is at another one in Kern County. Right now to breaking news happening in MacArthur Park, where police are in a standoff with a woman after an officer-involved shooting.
Yeah, that suspect is the woman you see inside the lake right now. Desmond Shaw live over the scene in Sky 9 to tell us more now. Desmond.
Juan and Susie, maybe the strangest standoff I've ever seen. And it all started with reports of a woman with a gun near MacArthur Park, right around Wilshire and Alvarado. When LAPD responded, shots were exchanged between the officers and the suspect. Nobody was hit. All officers are accounted for. Nobody is injured. It appears the woman is okay, but then she jumped into the lake, swam out to this island in the middle of the lake, and she's been kind of in and out of the water. At one point, she was harassing the ducks and the geese, throwing rocks at them. She didn't hit any of the animals, so they're okay, but she's just out here. And LAPD, well, they have the entire park shut down. They are standing by in the area. They are crafting a plan to eventually try to peacefully apprehend this suspect. I don't want to give away their tactics right now, but they are trying to concoct something right now that can bring this to a peaceful conclusion. But at the moment, just a very, very weird situation here in MacArthur Park. Live in Sky 9 overhead, I'm Desmond Shaw. Juan and Susie, back to you in the studio.
All right, Desmond, thank you. This afternoon, fallout from Georgia's controversial new voting law. Major League Baseball now says this year's All-Star game won't be played there. It was supposed to be held in Atlanta this July. The commissioner says moving the game is the best way to demonstrate the league's values. A new host city has not been announced yet. The MLB draft is also being moved out of Georgia. The state recently passed a law that reduces the number of voting drop boxes in predominantly African-American areas and shortens the time available for absentee voting.
New guidelines for the fully vaccinated traveler. Will run down those changes coming up.
Plus, you don't want this to end up on your dinner table tonight. What looks like ground beef led to a big drug bust.
Also ahead, the most senior officer on the Minneapolis Police Department takes the stand in the Derek Chauvin trial. What he had to say about the force the former officer used on George Floyd.
And it took hours to rescue people from the deadliest train crash in Taiwan. You're going to hear from survivors coming up next.
Happy Friday. Cooler, but still really nice today. What should you expect as we get into Easter Sunday? We'll take a look coming up.
At least 50 people died in the deadliest train crash in Taiwan's history. Nearly 500 people were on board when the train slammed into a truck. KCAL9 Suzanne Marquez has more.
Rescuers call out, hoping to find anyone alive, while cutting away pieces of twisted wreckage in Taiwan. Authorities say a construction truck slid down a hill and onto the track, striking the train just before it entered a tunnel. The impact ripped train cars apart. This woman says, all of a sudden, I fell from my seat to the ground. I hit my head and it was bleeding. Those who could walk escaped to the roof. This passenger says the damage in his car was bad, but the next one over was much worse. Crews carried dozens of bodies from the scene. Medics treated more than 100 others for injuries. The train was carrying tourists and people heading home for the holidays. Authorities are now promising a thorough investigation into Taiwan's deadliest ever rail disaster. Suzanne Marquez, KCAL9 News.
The most senior officer in the Minneapolis Police Department testified today. Former officer Derek Chauvin's treatment of George Floyd defied department policy.
Totally unnecessary. Pulling him down to the ground, face down, and putting your knee on the neck for that amount of time is just uncalled for.
On cross-examination, Lieutenant Richard Zimmerman faced more questions about the use of force.
In a fight for your life, you as an officer are allowed to use whatever force is reasonable and necessary, correct?
Yes.
But Zimmerman said Chauvin's actions went against his training. He also said officers have a duty to render medical aid to detainees in distress. An Irvine man is in jail after a traffic stop led to a much bigger discovery. Investigators say they seized thousands of illicit pills, drugs, guns, and cash. Deputies pulled the man over on Wednesday in Irvine. In the car, they found 40,000 counterfeit Adderall pills containing meth, as well as fake Xanax pills containing fentanyl. The search warrant of the driver's home led to the discovery of even more drugs. The 24-year-old was booked on several charges.
A much-needed meal and some extra support this holiday weekend. The LA Mission opened its doors to thousands of homeless who don't want to spend Easter alone or hungry. The event took place outdoors because of the pandemic, and boxed meals were handed out. The people who took part said in a tough year, they're grateful. Here's KCAL9's Cara Finstrom with more.
They've had to move everything outside and adapt a bit, but take a look. The festivities are underway with folks moving through for meals and other gifts. The LA Mission hopes to reach out to about 4,000 people today. We caught up with one woman who says she's been looking forward to this regular celebration for nearly 2 decades.
Now I'm dying for the Easter event.
Bernstein Hines was first in line for the LA Mission Easter celebration. She started coming to the annual event back in 1992 when her life took some hard turns. She lost her apartment and had nowhere to go.
I was homeless for 5 years and I'm not homeless no more. I thank God I'm not homeless no more. They gave me all kinds of support, my housing, my hygiene at the Women's Center.
During it all, the meals and baskets given out here each Easter were reminders of what this season celebrates: new life and new beginnings.
Our mission is to give help, hope, and opportunity to men and women and children around Skid Row, and we are a mission without walls, so we begin to branch out into other cities as well.
Operations manager Jessica Mason says during the pandemic, they've witnessed greater need and faced new challenges in responding to it. The food being cooked up isn't being served at tables like in years past. Instead, COVID-screened volunteers are handing out boxed meals along with blankets and those Easter baskets.
We are here for these kind of times, for the rough times, to be able to provide still some hope and joy during this holiday season.
Joy is exactly what Bernstein Hines is feeling as Easter approaches.
I'm ready for Easter week. I'm going to see my grandkids. I have a nice weekend with my grandkids.
And she was very excited to tell us she's had both of her vaccinations and is looking forward to spending time with all 4 of her grandkids. Going to leave you with some of the Easter excitement here, some of the Easter bunnies, and some beautiful Easter baskets. Cara Finstrom, KCAL9 News.
Look at that pink, yellow, blue.
Yes.
So Eastery out there, right?
So Eastery out there. And you know, she put it so well that people are going to spend this Easter this year seeing their families, a lot of them for the first time, since the pandemic started.
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
Yeah, we need good weather for that.
We're going to have it.
Right.
Easter always does something to me, especially when I see an Easter basket, because my grandmother gave me Easter baskets until I was like way too old to get them.
That's too sweet. Oh my goodness.
So I love Easter baskets, minus the black jelly beans.
Me too.
But yeah, right? We're looking good outside, guys. Happy Friday. It is going to be beautiful as we get into the weekend. You'll notice that today was cooler than yesterday, but still really nice, right? Because yesterday we had temperatures that were, dare I say, hot, and today we're still looking pretty good, albeit a little bit cooler. For some folks, a lot cooler. 77 degrees the current temperature in Pasadena, 78 in Woodland Hills this afternoon. The folks in Fullerton are at 69, while in Anaheim they are in the low 70s. Look at the temperature difference compared to this time yesterday. Cooler by 14 degrees in Camarillo, 21 degrees cooler right now for the folks in Fullerton compared to yesterday. Folks in Ontario are just down by 3. So big difference here. Wind's not a problem. We did have some breezes earlier. Those are starting to calm a little bit, but still, as I said, a really nice Friday. We've got winds gusting up and over about 13 miles an hour for the folks in Burbank. So the weekend forecast, you want to know about Easter? It's going to be great. Arguably perfect Easter weather, right? We're looking at low to mid 70s, partly cloudy, dry. It's going to be great. So as we take a look at the rest of your 7-day forecast, we're really doing good. I mean, we're talking temperatures in the 80s for the IE as we get into tomorrow, 85 degrees as we get into Easter Sunday. High desert looking really good. 86 degrees is what you're going to see. Everybody's looking nice. Beaches, 64 degrees tomorrow, 74 for LA and Orange County as we get into Easter. We're looking at low to mid 70s, 66 for the beaches on Easter Sunday. And the valleys will see temperatures in the low to mid 80s. So enjoy the weekend because the weather will definitely not be a problem, guys. We'll send it back to you.
Yeah, not at all. Your Easter candy might even melt. It's chocolate,
Yeah,
right?
no kidding.
All right, Markina, thanks.
Sure.
Every guest in this hotel suddenly ordered to leave and not to come back. Ahead why their vacation quickly became a nightmare.
And we're learning just how many children tried to cross into the U.S. last month. The record-breaking numbers coming up next.
A huge flood of immigrants tried to get into the U.S. just last month alone. Border officials say more than 170,000 tried to cross, and that includes nearly 19,000 unaccompanied minors, and that's a record. Before March, the largest number of kids crossing alone was just under 12,000. Customs and Border Protection transfers them from its detention centers to facilities run by the Department of Health and Human Services. But it's scrambling to find enough places to accommodate all the children. The coordinator at the border says the best way to bring the numbers down is to provide aid to the countries they're fleeing.
A vacation nightmare in Florida. A Kissimmee resort suddenly closed, kicking out all the guests and firing all the employees. Champions World Resort was apparently sold. People who were staying there were told they had 2 hours to pack up and leave. The hotel in Kissimmee was fully booked for spring break, including a family that drove from Rhode Island for what was supposed to be a relaxing 2-week vacation.
Havoc just broke loose. Everyone just started coming outside. Everyone's packing their bags and stuff. They didn't give us a notice or anything. You know, that's not right.
Well, the manager had apparently worked there for 18 years and is now suddenly out of a job without notice, along with all the other employees. The owner did not respond to questions for comment.
A day at the races, finally. Still ahead, fans finally get to see horses in action again.
Plus, the COVID vaccine may not just protect pregnant women, but also their unborn child. We have the results of a new study.
Within here, they got all sorts of price points.
Many self-defense instructors are seeing an increase in the number of people signing up for classes.
One move, one counterattack.
Many of those in the Asian American community. I'm Jasmine Veal with that story coming up.
And are you eager to travel for Easter? Hear what the CDC says is a low risk and what it warns against. That's coming up next.
And we continue to follow breaking news out of MacArthur Park this afternoon, where police are in a bizarre standoff with a woman.
That's right. There she is in the pink right behind the trees. It started after an officer-involved shooting. Our Desmond Shaw is live in Sky9 with this really bizarre tale, Des.
Yeah, Juan and Susie, it is a very strange one indeed now on the island of MacArthur Park. This began just before 3 o'clock at Alvarado and Wilshire. It was reports of a woman with a gun. When LAPD responded, we know that shots were fired both by LAPD and by the suspect. It's unclear who fired first, but nobody was hit. All officers were accounted for. You can see that this woman is uninjured, but definitely in a very agitated state, and it was really upsetting to watch, Juan and Susie. But she's been harassing ducks and geese on the island, and she was throwing rocks at them, and sadly she did kill one of those ducks that was in the water with a fairly large rock. So LAPD, they're still trying to craft a plan on how they're going to peacefully apprehend the suspect. They are crafting that plan right now. Maybe some time before they are able to apprehend this person, or hopefully they just give up peacefully at some point. But this very strange standoff here in MacArthur Park, Westlake area does continue with LAPD. Live at Sky9 overhead, I'm Desmond Shaw. Juan and Susie, back to you.
All right, Desmond, thank you. And a live look now at LAX this afternoon as the CDC releases new guidance on traveling. It's for those who are fully vaccinated from the coronavirus.
But it's not stopping others from hopping on planes for spring break or the Easter holiday. KCAL9's Joy Benedict shows us how things are going at LAX.
We're not at pre-pandemic levels yet, But for the last 22 days, the TSA has screened more than 1 million passengers a day nationwide. That's the longest streak since the pandemic began, proving once again folks are ready to fly. You are now free to fly the friendly skies. Kind of.
We fly standby, so we weren't able to get on the flight. It got booked.
As spring break travelers hustled to try and get on overbooked flights at LAX, the Cardona family got stuck at the airport.
I have not flown in all this time. We've laid low. I've kept them, I didn't want to expose them to anything. So I'm ready. At this point, I'm ready.
And clearly, so are many other families, as air travel has reached new heights this week during the pandemic.
Flights are so overbooked and everybody's traveling for spring break. They said we could take a flight at Sunday morning.
And today, the CDC announced that if you're fully vaccinated, it is safe to move about the cabin and the country.
Fully vaccinated grandparents can fly to visit their healthy grandkids without getting a COVID-19 test or self-quarantining.
But despite the new guidelines, the CDC is still recommending against traveling right now since COVID numbers are rising in some parts of the country. The Barth family is not vaccinated. They came to the airport for a COVID test before flying out later this weekend.
We want to make sure that we're safe before we travel and when we get back, so we know we didn't get something over there and bring it back with us.
And that's exactly what the CDC recommends. And it suggests that even those vaccinated do the same thing if they are traveling internationally.
Fully vaccinated people should get tested and have a negative test result before they board an international flight back into the United States.
But right now, some are just trying to find a flight. And with so many Americans still unvaccinated, many here are quick to point out that although they are choosing to fly, that doesn't mean they are leaving safety behind.
They're saying go ahead, but I'm still cautious. Like, I'm still hand sanitizing, mask. I don't think I'm ever going to go completely back to normal.
And don't forget, the CDC defines you as being fully vaccinated 2 weeks after your final shot. From LAX, Joy Benedict, KCAL9 News.
Speaking of that, more than 100 million Americans now have at least one COVID vaccine shot, but the White House is sounding the alarm about another rise in cases.
Too many Americans are acting as if this fight is over. It is not. I plead with you, don't give back the progress we've all fought so hard to achieve.
I still continue to worry that with 80% of the population unvaccinated, that we have a lot of work to do to control this pandemic.
The administration is encouraging governors to keep on or reinstate their mask mandates. Experts say Michigan is the most concerning hotspot right now. Doctors say the spike is linked to youth sports and social events.
Well, many pregnant women are wrestling with the decision whether to get a COVID vaccine. And now a new study just found potential benefits to the unborn child. KCAL9's Femi Redwood explains.
OBGYN Dr. Jessica O'Connell has been caring for patients during the pandemic while expecting her own new addition.
Truly, I'd been crossing my fingers and waiting and hoping that the vaccine would be ready sooner rather than later. I was thrilled when it became available.
She got the COVID vaccine during her pregnancy and 2 months ago gave birth to her son, George. The doctor was part of a new study at Northwestern Medicine looking at 27 pregnant women who received the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine in the third trimester.
Women who received the vaccine in pregnancy did exhibit a similar immune response to what we would anticipate in the non-pregnant. There was fairly robust transfer of the antibodies into the umbilical cord blood.
Lead study author Dr. Emily Miller says women vaccinated sooner in the third trimester were more likely to pass on protective antibodies.
For those folks that are on the fence, that are in their early third trimester, that are not sure should they just wait until after delivery, these data suggest that not only is there the incredibly important maternal benefit of vaccination, but there also is probably an additive benefit to the baby of going ahead and getting it earlier.
As a mom, that feels amazing, knowing that George has a little bit extra protection. He has 2 older brothers who do go to school. So between my career and our personal lives, there's only so many lifestyle things we could do to protect him.
Research shows breastfeeding moms can also transfer antibodies to their babies. Dr. O'Connell says she plans to breastfeed as long as she can. Femi Redwood, New York.
And it's off to the races. Santa Anita Racetrack in Arcadia is back open after shutting down because of the pandemic. Organizers are adhering to state guidelines for large sporting event venues. That's 20% capacity right now, advanced ticket purchases and mask wearing. The jockey who rode the 65-1 long shot horse, Country Horse, to a Kentucky Derby win a few years ago says he's happy the public is back.
Just come out here and enjoy a great show that Santa Anita has put on for years and years. I think we're all doing a great thing and all moving in the right direction, and I really hope everybody's going to come to see us.
Indoor wagering and seating facilities at the track will remain closed until further notice.
The rise in anti-Asian hate incidents has sparked a rush to take self-defense classes. KCAL9's Jasmine Villa went to one martial arts academy teaching its students how to defend themselves.
Front leg jump, front kick.
Gary Gappazani owns the G3 Academy of Martial Arts in Sierra Madre, where he teaches Hapkido, a hybrid Korean martial art.
First, we learn how to break away, hands up, step pull.
On this Friday, he is teaching his students some basic self-defense moves, from hitting pressure points to how to break away from an attacker.
Boom, move left, move right, sweep, and finish.
During the pandemic, he moved to virtual classes and outdoor lessons in the park. He says he has now seen a renewed interest from people eager to learn these skills.
The interest is always there, especially now more than ever. People really want to come back. People want to exercise. People want community. And most important, people want to feel safe.
Mom Lucille Wijaya signed up her two kids, Nalani and Keanu, years ago. She says with the rise in violence against the Asian American community, having her kids know how to protect themselves is important.
They're very aware of the violence around the Chinese and the Asian Pacific people, and so I'm like, you're ready. Don't attack, but you need to be able to defend yourself.
Students in this class range from 4 to 70 years old, and those 70-year-olds with a cane being taught how to fight off an attacker, choke and throw.
And they've called me later on and said, I was attacked, and because you showed me that move, I am now safe.
Bonnie Sue, a Pasadena mother, says she doesn't feel as safe anymore, and neither do many of her friends.
A lot of the moms in my area have been looking for self-defense classes too, Asian and non-Asian overall. I think it would be helpful to help other people in this situation as well.
We're gonna get
Last Sunday, one group decided to offer a free self-defense class in Pan Pacific Park, given the fear many are feeling in the Asian American community. Police caution it's good to know self-defense, but to avoid it at all costs unless necessary. Gappazani agrees.
With the things that are happening out in the world with shootings and this and that, it's super important to know how to be able to defend, not fight, defend oneself.
In Sierra Madre, Jasmine Villa, KCAL9 News.
So good to know, and it looks like fun also,
Yeah,
huh?
it does, yeah.
I'd like to try that. All right. A company suddenly decides to give all of its workers next week off with pay. We'll have that story ahead.
Plus, remember this spectacular show in the sky over the Pacific Northwest? Well, we're going to tell you what exactly created it.
And imagine this was your paycheck, thousands of pennies, but that wasn't even the worst of it. Wait until you see how one man's former boss delivered them. That story's next. We may not want to give this man a penny for his thoughts over what his ex-boss did to him. Andreas Flatten quit his job at an auto works facility in Peachtree, Georgia, because of what he called the toxic work environment. This is how his boss paid out his last check. More than 90,000 pennies, all dipped in some type of oil. And look at this, they became so heavy they flattened one of the tires on his wheelbarrow.
It's just such a childish and petty thing to do, having absolutely zero clue on what I was going to do with them. I'd already tried, attempted to clean them, and it took me 2 hours to get about $5 worth.
Well, guess what? The company Coinstar, they're at the supermarkets.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they heard about the problem and brought him some muscle to help. After gathering all the coins, the VP of North American Operations at Coinstar handed Flatten 10 crisp, clean, and oil-free $100 bills. Meantime, a call was placed to Flatten's former employer, and of course, Susie, they had no comment.
Well, crews have found the piece of the SpaceX rocket that created a massive show in the skies above the Pacific Northwest. The rocket piece was on private property about 3 hours east of Seattle. Experts say the rocket broke up and burned as it was returning to the Earth's atmosphere last week. Many who witnessed it thought it was a meteor shower. The rocket had deployed a number of Starlink satellites designed to improve internet service around the world.
Some encouraging news about the economy.
What the newest unemployment numbers show about people getting back to work. Next.
I'm Jim Hill. Coming up in sports, Major League Baseball takes a stand. Plus, a look ahead to UCLA in the Final Four. Those stories and more are next in sports.
Well, right now, employers across the country are on a hiring spree. Nearly 1 million jobs were added just last month.
It's a sign COVID vaccines may be having an effect on the economy. KCAL9's Natalie Brand takes a deep dive into the numbers.
California's Thunder Valley Casino and Resort is hiring on the spot.
We're looking for over 40 guest room attendants, which full-time positions. We have 25 positions for our janitorial staff.
With more people vaccinated and stimulus money fueling the economy, employers added 916,000 jobs last month, the biggest gain since last summer. The unemployment rate dipped to 6%. Job growth was widespread, with the biggest gains in leisure and hospitality, education, and construction. Bankrate.com economic analyst Mark Hamrick.
Yes, we had many thousands of jobs recovered in the leisure and hospitality segment, which has been the leading edge of job loss. But even with that, there's still 3 million jobs to recover there alone.
The president this week unveiled a massive $2 trillion infrastructure proposal that the administration says will create millions of jobs.
If we pass this plan, the economy will create 19 million jobs. Good jobs, blue-collar jobs, jobs that pay well.
For some employers, the challenge is filling lower-paying jobs. Wade Beckman's Texas restaurant is operating with half its usual staff.
Our restaurants are getting busier, and we're finding it really harder to find staff than we ever have.
Even though there is a demand for workers, the economy is still more than 8 million jobs short of pre-pandemic levels. Natalie Brand, KCAL9 News.
Americans who lost their job last year and already filed those tax returns will have one less headache to deal with. The IRS says it will automatically recalculate their returns to account for the last stimulus tax break. It will then send any refund directly to taxpayers starting next month. This provision was part of the nearly $2 trillion stimulus package President Biden signed into law last month, but after millions had already filed their taxes.
Well, get this, LinkedIn is looking to make sure employees don't burn out. The social network is putting almost all of its workers on vacation next week. Nearly 16,000 people will get the paid time off, and since they'll be away at the same time, they won't be returning to a flood of emails, phone calls, or project requests. There will be a core team that has to keep LinkedIn up and running. They'll get their time off a little later.
That's fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic, actually. A lot of people on spring break right now, and Easter coming up on Sunday. Some nice weather to go with it, too, right, Martina?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, today's cooler, believe it or not. And when you look at these temperatures, you think, wow, it was really hot yesterday. And it was, because if you take a look, you can see that these numbers look pretty good even still, right? We've got upper 70s in places like Pasadena and Ontario right now, low 70s in Burbank, upper 70s for you in Van Nuys, going up to Ventura County. We see numbers in the 60s, a really nice day today, and we're going to continue with that. If you like it, you're going to love this weekend. When you compare those numbers to 24 hours ago, though, obviously there's a difference. Look at the folks in Fullerton. They are colder by 21 degrees right now compared to this time yesterday. Santa Ana down by 18, by 10 in Burbank. So yeah, a big difference as we take a look at the 7-day forecast. Folks are getting ready for the Easter weekend. Know that we are going to see the clouds. In and out clouds, I think, will be not only the story for this weekend, but even as we get into a lot of next week. So tomorrow, I think, will be fairly clear and 74 degrees. But as we get into Sunday, the clouds come in and we're looking at 75. The 7-day is really nice. We've got 60s pretty much across the board for the beaches. Again, in and out clouds, the story there. LA and Orange County, 74 degrees tomorrow, 75 as we get into Sunday. And your story over the next few days will be low to mid 70s. You may even squeeze some upper 70s in there. 80s will be the story for the valleys here. Again, clouds are kind of in and out of your forecast. Easter Sunday for the Inland Empire looking good at 86 degrees, 90 for the high desert as we get into Easter Sunday. And for the mountains, 69 degrees tomorrow and low 70s on Easter. Back to you.
We will enjoy those temps. Marquina, thank you.